I'm here with the president of Showtime Boxing, the man himself, Mr. Stephen Espinoza. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm thrilled. What's not to be happy about?
It's going to be a great weekend of boxing. Listen, let's kick it off like this. What's your thoughts on the rumors on Twitter by certain media claiming Showtime Boxing is going out of business when you guys are the only ones putting on the biggest and best fights back to back?
Yeah, that's the irony. These are rumors and speculation that we've been dealing with since 2018. We know where it comes from. There are 2 or 3 guys who love to say it, and they've been saying it every year since 2018. And our reaction is going to be the same thing as it's always been. We're not going to engage. It's time to make big fights. And as you stated, we just keep rolling along, making big fights, trying to support and grow the sport as much as we can.
Are you surprised they're still saying this? Because they've been saying this about Showtime for what, a decade, since Floyd left HBO and came to Showtime?
Well, yeah, I said the last 5 years since HBO went out. But look, there's been the critics and the naysayers from the very start. I mean, there are people saying I wouldn't last 2 years in the job. There are people saying I did a stupid deal with Mayweather. There are people saying PBC and Showtime have been going broke since 2015, 2016. So, the reality is there's always going to be critics. You can't really play into them. You just got to keep doing the work, doing big fights.
Yes, the Zone has lost $6 billion since 2016, but somehow, some way, it's Showtime that's going out of business. So again, so what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, it's the market's changed a lot. We've been here 37 years. We've been supporting the sport. I'm not sure exactly why there's so many people who seem to be rooting for us to go out of business when we've been one of the driving forces for the sport and supporting the sport for almost 40 years. So look, it's all about growing the sport, doing the biggest fights possible. And you're right. There's double standards. I mean, there are companies that have come and gone. Came in with great fanfare, said they're going to change the sport, and where are they now? But we just keep doing what we came to do, which is making the big fights.
So what's your response to Dana White, what Dana White had to say today on Instagram regarding never exceeding the top boxing gate yet? Dana said it's only because of Crawford, Canelo, and Gervonta. What's your thoughts?
Well, as usual, Dana's comprehension isn't that good. I never said I was taking credit for any of that. I said I'm stating facts. And the fact is this is the third $20 million gate. And the fact is that UFC has never done a $20 million gate. But the reality is, I don't expect anything, really all that different from Dana. I stated facts. He responds with name calling. It's sort of like a 4th grade discussion, and I'm not here for it. As between the two of us, I think the guy who's on camera putting his hands on his wife is the one who's the scumbag and the piece of shit. But that's just me, But I'm going to let it go because the reality is, it's a battle of wits, and he's unarmed, and there's nothing left to say.
The fans have been asking how come Showtime and PBC don't have a replay option of all of their fights on the Showtime app, because a lot of fight fans want to rewatch the fights over and over again, especially when they will also help Showtime's subscription count and help promote fighters.
Yeah, it's a good point, and that is a feature that's on the roadmap. It's been on the roadmap. Fortunately, with a lot of the tech stuff going on, the move of Showtime within Paramount Plus, there's a lot of tech stuff that's sort of backed up. So it's certainly on the roadmap. We hear the fans. We'd like to get it done quickly as possible.
Well, me personally, I'd be dying to watch these great fights on Showtime again, like Benavidez versus Caleb and Crawford versus Errol Spence. Even the undercard fights, especially if we pay for them pay-per-view fight, that should give us the option to rewatch the fight we paid for. Would you say that that's a fair request from the fight fans, and how soon can something like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we do have the pay-per-view fights on replay, starting a week later. But I understand people want to, have an immediate replay option before the week passes, and it's something there. That's one of the areas I don't control, is sort of the tech part. So you got to sort of sometimes be patient and wait for the priorities to get addressed. But it's certainly something that's certainly coming in the future.
Another request by fight fans is an option for no commentary during fights, only the sound of the punches and fighters' corners. Is that something Showtime can provide, for the fight fans?
Interesting. That's one I hadn't heard of. Yeah, that should be simple enough. You know, I know there's been some experiments. I know there are networks that have done that for entire broadcasts before, and it's an interesting experience. That's something I'll look into. I hadn't really even thought of that.
Mm-hmm. What's the status on Errol Spence versus Crawford rematch? Is there a weight issue, and will this rematch take place at 54?
Look, you know, they're still working out details, dates, weights, you know, all of those kinds of things. So, you know, it's still in the midst of conversation. I wouldn't say anything's set now. You know, and there's a procedure in there which will determine the weight for the fight. You know, I'll let that play out sort of behind the scenes, and you know, and hopefully we'll have an announcement soon on all the details.
Now, what's your thoughts on Crawford versus Canelo at maybe 168? Crawford said he's willing to move up 3 weight divisions to fight Canelo. Would you say this is the biggest fight in boxing, and is that a fight that you guys would like to make?
It's certainly an intriguing fight. I mean, the way Crawford looked, you know, he looked phenomenal. He looked strong. He looked sharp. So I understand why people want to see him against Canelo. You know, and if the audience wants it, the fighters are willing to do it, the weight can be worked out, then I don't see why not.
Floyd Mayweather came out stating that he wanted to match 17-year-old prospect Canelo versus the world champion Lee Wood for his pro debut. What's your thoughts on how good is Canelo for Floyd to be, you know, this confident about his skills?
Look, there's a lot of buzz around that. You know, I'm looking forward to him, to seeing it. There's a lot of buzz, you know, and Floyd's got a great eye for talent. You know, you can look at him. You know, he brought us Tank. He's brought us, you know, a number of other, you know, really solid fighters. So when he says this is a guy that he co-signs, that's not something that happens a whole lot. So if Floyd is that high on him, then he's definitely somebody to watch.
Now, there were reports that David Benavidez signed a 3-fight contract to fight Morrell, Andrade, and Charlo. How true is that, and what happened with Benavidez versus Morrell? Because Morrell said he already signed a contract to fight Benavidez.
I had not heard about a 3-fight contract. Maybe that's something that happened on the PBC side, but that's not something that I'm aware of. You know, and you know, there were talks with Morrell. You know, broke down, sort of slowed down. They pivoted, went to Andre. You know, the great thing about it, there's plenty of good talent in the division. There's lots of good fights to be made, and I know Morrell will get a big fight. You know, if we're able to make Benavidez Andre, that'll be coming soon. And there's, you know, plenty of action in that division for all those fighters.
So is Benavidez versus Andrade fight nearly a done deal, and will the winner get Canelo next?
It is very close. I don't. You know, anybody who knows me, knows I don't like talking about stuff until it's, you know, signed, sealed, and delivered. So I'd say it's very close. I like the chance that it gets done. In terms of Canelo, look, Canelo is very focused. He's very clear. You know, we had a lot of discussions about what fighters he wants to take on and the opportunities, but he's not looking ahead. So he hasn't made any commitments one way or the other about what's going to happen after this. I know there's a number of guys on the short list. You know, Maul, Andre, Benavidez, Morrell, you know, others. But you know, there isn't one who's distinguished as like the #1 choice for the next fight.
The fight fans are dying to see more fights on Showtime. Are we still getting a second schedule this year? And if so, approximately when?
I think we'll have a couple of announcements after the Canelo fight. So stay tuned. I think hopefully with a little bit of luck, things fall into place. The week after Canelo, the first week of October, we'll have a couple of announcements and round out the rest of the year for the schedule.
Okay, I'm just going to conclude it with this last question, sir. Showtime and PBC have been putting on the best fights in boxing for years by far. In fact, this year, boxing has been buzzing more than UFC thanks to Showtime Boxing. What makes Showtime and PBC partnership more successful than the rest?
Well, I mean, I think it's really the commitment to the sport. You know, the reality is very much a fighters first approach. We try to highlight the fighters, make them front and center, make sure they maximize, you know, what they're making, and expose them as much as we can. It's not about the executives, it's not about the networks, it's not about the promoters, it's about the fighters. And I think that is something that really distinguishes, you know, what we do from a lot of other boxing, a lot of other combat sports. where they mistreat the fighters, they underpay the fighters, they don't promote the fighters. They're interested in building their own brands at the expense of, of the fighters, and that's not what we're doing here.
Espinoza, I really enjoy your time, and thank you for your time. Is there anything, the last thing you want to leave with the fans?
No, absolutely. No, look, looking forward to Saturday. I think it's going to be a phenomenal night. I know everyone's focused on Canelo and Charlo, but this is an undercard that is as good as any pay-per-view undercard that I've been involved in. So that's one from 5 o'clock, all the way through the main event. This is something to watch.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.